What is up, everybody? We are here for Survivor on AfterBuzz TV, Season 37, Episode 8, You Get What You Give. One cast member almost got what they gave, and there was a brochacho blindside, but it might not be who you think, so stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What is up, you guys?
Hello, everybody.
It's Survivor Wednesday on AfterBuzz TV. Brochacho blindside, not who we thought. You guys, this episode was crazy. The last two episodes have been crazy. Like, we were just saying before we started our stream that we just have so much to talk about, and we cannot wait to get into it with you guys. Thanks, everybody, for joining us in the live chat and for being here with us tonight for Survivor Season 37, Episode 8, You Get What You Give. I'm your host, Paige Bonanno.
Hey, guys, what's up? Veronica Valencia here.
And unfortunately, Timothy could not join us tonight, but we will be excited to see him when he's back. And what the heck?
I can't even, a part of me is just so, I'm shocked. And a part of me is happy because at the same time, it's like, okay, at least it's not Christian.
Exactly.
But it was John.
Okay, so 2 idols were played tonight.
Wow.
And one person went home that we did not think was going to go home, and it was just so insane. So, 3 brochachos, right? Dan, John, Christian.
Mm-hmm.
In what order would you have wanted the brochachos to get picked off?
Well, Dan definitely first.
Yep.
John and then Christian.
Yes. And unfortunately, John got picked off tonight by a move that was not his own. Nothing that he did wrong, ever. I mean, what are your overall thoughts about this episode?
I thought it was insane. I understand completely, even last episode where Angelina was coming from, and this episode where Mike is coming from with let's get Christian out because he's a threat. I completely understand that because it's true. He's so likable, and if he were to get to the final 3 or final 2, he would definitely win. However, Paige, we're on the same page. It's like we want him to just get a little further, not necessarily win, even though we'd like it.
It's so funny because like Mike kind of summed it all up for everybody tonight. He was like, you guys, everybody at home watching this season is like, either A, why aren't they getting this threat out sooner, or B, they're all rooting for him. And I'm like, that is exactly right, because I'm 100% rooting for Christian. Like, I think that he is the biggest threat out there and he could win, but I don't want him to be gone because I just love his personality so much and he brings so much to the show.
I agree, and I adore him. And I was thinking about it, too, because they were trying to think of all the reasons why Christian is a threat.
Yeah.
And I understand it, again, from the social standpoint, but I was looking at it and I was like, here's how they could justify keeping him around. He's not a physical threat. And while they say, yes, Christian can rally people, I would think people would like to stand by Christian, but I don't think he's assertive enough to be a leader.
Sure.
So,
but I think that he has been showing his assertion like in a like more relaxed sense. Like he doesn't assert himself like Angelina does.
Yeah.
But I don't know, he's like kind of rallying some people. Like they were saying that Gabby couldn't be that person to rally them. Like she's only strong if Christian's strong, which I 100% agree with.
Yes, 100% agree.
But I mean, I think that Christian is. But it's funny though, actually, because the people when his name was thrown out there, they were saying that they didn't think that he was that much of a threat at the time. Like so, being in the game with him might come across differently, like to us on TV than it does to them, except for Mike because he's been on reality TV before, so maybe he like kind of understands it more. But like they didn't think that he was as big of a threat. They're like, why are they throwing his name out? He didn't even do anything yet.
I was very surprised that Mike was actually the one to rally against Christian this week. I feel like I understand that he's constantly thinking about his game, but I feel like he's in a very comfortable position, but maybe not.
Well, this is really bad. This is going to be bad for like Mike and them next week because he had his little alliance and like Mike was the one that blew it up. So that's not going to look good for him. But we can get into all that. Let's start from the beginning. So there's so many things to talk about, but we'll try to be brief in each of these sections. But first, okay, last week with Angelina and Elizabeth, you guys had your whole after show about it last week. We won't go into it in detail, but I wasn't here, and what the heck, it was crazy. But we did start off this episode with, like, Angelina was trying to justify why she did what she did, and it's a total bold-faced lie. And she lied right at Tribal, too, and I was like, how? Elizabeth, I thought, would have called her out more at Tribal and been like, no, this is exactly what happened. She waited for me around the bend while I came over and said, hey, you're being voted out. Like, Angelina, this week we saw, tried to make it seem as though Elizabeth took her away and then was badgering her for a name, and she just gave it to her at a moment of weakness. I mean, you have to kind of cover your bases. Like, you have to make up a lie in this situation. But Dan was the one saying, like, she should have just owned up and said, hey, my bold move backfired. What do you think?
I feel like from an audience standpoint, that would be amazing that if she did just own it. If you're in the game standpoint, I can understand why she doesn't want to put herself out there like that. Like, oh, I tried to make a big move. It backfired. Now I'm on hot ground. I think she should have just stopped talking. Honestly, I think
at Tribal or today?
Afterwards. I think everything that she kind of needed to say was at Tribal. I think she could only keep digging deeper.
Yeah.
I thought she should have just stopped talking.
And she kept saying, like, well, they're trying to pit us against each other. This isn't what it is. And I'm like, dude, it is. It's 100% what it looks like. And it backfired on you. And now, like, Mike was kind of saying, you know, she's been defanged a little bit. Did you feel like she was a little bit more, like, submissive in this episode compared to, like, how she's been?
I would say so a little bit. I think she was just a little bit more go with the flow. I think she didn't want to be as assertive as she was, even though she kind of had that moment where she's like, okay, like I said, let's get rid of Christian, but you didn't want to follow me. Now Mike is saying, let's get rid of Christian and let's do it. But I think this week she was, as to your, you were saying, a little bit more submissive and just wanted to go with the flow and follow and not do anything too big that would get her into any more in heat.
I mean, speaking of the situation you just brought up when they were kind of deciding who was going to be voted out tonight, and Mike had thrown out Christian's name because he was such a big threat, blah, blah, blah. And then Angelina said, hey, it's weird because when a man throws out the idea, then suddenly everybody listens. But when I threw out the idea 5 minutes ago, like as a woman, nobody's listening. Do you think that they weren't listening because she's a woman and Mike's a man? I think it was more... Personally, like, it just seemed like the timing was better this week than it was last week to talk about it and have the conversation. And then that idea from last week was planted in their head, like, we want to get, they said, we want to get Christian out next, just not this vote. So I think Angelina was kind of using that almost as an excuse.
I would say so. I'm sure that that has been an issue in past seasons of Survivor. I agree. I think that maybe the timing was better at this point of view. They just had to get through the first merge vote. But I also think Angelina comes off in a way that people don't really want to listen to her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that she was kind of just like grasping for straws when she kind of threw out that argument. But I don't know. Let us know what you guys think in the chat. And yeah, I mean, speaking of some other like alliances, so we had mentioned that, you know, Mike had really been like the leader of the charge against the Christian vote. And we see like right at the beginning of the episode that he talks to Christian about saying that he doesn't think Gabby is like as strong as they think. And like Christian seemed very upset about this, that Mike would even throw out the idea that Gabby wasn't in it. And, you know, Christian was like, are we really like doing this to our alliance at this point? I mean, do you think maybe Mike throwing that out wasn't good for him? Or like, how did you feel like their interaction went between that whole alliance conversation?
I felt like it might have put theories in Christian's mind, but I don't think it ended up as worse as it could have been, because it would have been Mike's name on the paper instead of John's, I think, if it went that bad.
But I do think that Mike would, like, I don't know if he was as strong he was trying to say, oh, I don't think Gabby's as strong in our alliance, but like, I think Mike's the one freaking out about the alliance, because clearly he freaked out about Gabby, clearly he freaked out about Christian. Like, why are you getting yourself into an alliance if then you're gonna kind of blow up everything by multiple standards?
I feel like he again, I said this earlier, I feel like he was in a very comfortable position, because if he went with this new alliance, he was in a good spot. If he betrayed this alliance and went with the Goliath, he was still in a good spot because they have the numbers.
Right.
I don't know why he chose now to freak out. He's kind of been freaking out the whole game.
Yeah. Maybe
because he sees himself as weaker, but I feel like he is being approached to be in these really good alliances. Don't mess it up.
Right. And Mike's like, he's really strategic and really strong at this game. Speaking of other strong players from this episode, I mean, Davey and Nick go and they find a symbol.
Yes.
Which then turns into a steal a vote at Tribal. I was kind of confused about how Carl got all intertwined in this as well, because he kind of came up while they were walking.
Yeah, right?
I thought that Davey was going to make a diversion so that, like, Carl would get away, so, like, Nick could go over there, but Nick just kind of pulled Carl in and they found it all together. So all three of them have it now, or know about it now.
I think that was so smart, just because typically when you go out and look for idols, you always want it to find it privately, so that way you don't have to tell anyone, which is a smart plan. But I feel like if you're going to do it this way, you should do what you can to not bring attention to yourself. Like, oh, where are those three? Are they out looking for idols? I thought it was so smart, Davey doing that distraction.
Dude, and they loved it. Like, they were all like, oh, look at Davey, he's getting it over there. Like, Davey's, first of all, so he's a great player. We've obviously seen that from now on. But between the three of them now, we know Davey has an idol, which nobody else knows about. Carl had the idol nullifier, and now the three of them have like a steal a vote. So they're all kind of in the same like good graces here. But Davey didn't tell anybody.
He didn't. He was in such a good position, which, and I know we're going to talk about it later, was so surprising with what happened at Tribal.
Oh,
the decision he made.
Yeah. But was there something over there that you were gonna mention?
I was.
Yeah.
I was. Hey, AfterBuzzers. Our network produces after shows for nearly all your favorite TV shows. From dramas, reality TV, sci-fi, and more, there is no other network that works harder to serve television fans. But we need your help. We are asking that you please subscribe to one or more of our YouTube channels. By subscribing to our channel, YouTube will suggest content that's tailor-made for you, and you'll help AfterBuzz continue to grow. And if you're worried about pesky notifications, don't be, because they're completely optional. So hit that subscribe button now for this channel and check out our other AfterBuzz YouTube channels as well. Let us know you did so in the comments, and Paige will thank you on air.
Woohoo!
For now, thanks for being the best fans and for helping us be the ESPN of TV Talk.
Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe.
Yes!
Thank you. Anyway, so reward, they were getting 12 pizzas for reward. I mean, go ahead.
I just want to go to our chat real quick. Thank you, everyone who is tuning in live in our chat. Please continue to comment. I love seeing all of your comments. Just a few shout-outs right here. Let's see. Some people were talking about Mike, and I really wanted to. Yes, Joseph in the chat saying Mike is too paranoid because he made it to the merge. And Chelsea90 is saying Mike is surprising me, however, think it will bite him. And then a few people, Mir Domain is saying, I did respect Davey's bow technique as a distraction.
Yeah.
And then Sheena123 is saying, Nick, Carl, and Davey are so powerful. Vote Steal, Vote Nullifier, and before this episode, Idol.
Yeah, they've got a lot going on for the three of them. But yes, moving into rewards, so we had 2 teams of 6, and they were playing for 12 pizzas, which means that there's 2 pizzas a person, which is a little much. Anyways,
I don't know if I was. I'm sure it is, but in that moment, I'd be like, give me all the pizzas.
Yeah, right. But at the beginning, Jeff makes them all split one piece of pizza just to have a little taste. I was like, oh my God, that's so mean. Like, you're just teasing them at this point. But, I mean, we've talked a little bit about Gabby being like kind of a whiny type of person in the past, and like right away when Jeff's like, hey, it's gonna be a schoolyard pick, she's like, oh great. Like, she gets so whiny about these situations, and it like just makes me so livid. But then like when she was the captain, then everything was all good, and like she's all fine again.
Yeah.
But
it bothered me because I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for these people who were cast in these stereotypes to break out of these stereotypes. And I just feel Gabby is not taking that opportunity as much as she should. I feel like she's still holding on to feeling like she's the complete underdog. And that may be true in certain instances, but I feel like it's not. She has shown that she's good at competition. She's shown that she can be part of powerful alliances. And it's starting to disappoint me that she keeps throwing out this personality of like, I'm the weakling and you're treating me like the weakling, when clearly you are here to prove that that's not the case.
right, like she's the one crying at Tribal last weekend when she wasn't even on the chopping block. But it's just like, yeah, I agree, and I just wish by this point we would have started to see like a little bit of growth in her. Like I just don't personally feel like I've seen a lot of growth in her up until this point, because it seems like it's the same sob story over and over and over again. Like, a lot of people have been comparing her to Hannah, and like I feel like Hannah, we saw growth with her like within the first couple of episodes, and like I'm still waiting for that growth from Gabby. I hope we see it.
I think it's the quirkiness. It's not so much similar personalities. It's just the quirkiness.
Yeah. I totally agree. But Gabby is the captain. She picks Christian, Allison, John, Nick, and Alec. And Mike is the captain for the other team. He picks Carl, Kara, Davey, Dan, and Angelina. And Gabby and Angelina, they step out first. So basically, they're holding these big bags above their head, 10 pounds. And then they have to kind of like shift the weight between them, which this is a hard freaking challenge.
I was looking at it and I was in pain just because like holding my shoulders, like holding anything like that is so hard.
I would be able to do it for like 2 seconds.
Exactly.
And then you have to like figure out how you can transfer them to each other. Like you could have one arm down and one arm up, but like it would be just as hard. Like I would have to be constantly switching.
I remember I was asking you because it was a thought, but it was 100% not going to happen. Their strings seemed long enough where they could literally put the weight on their head, just like the little bean bags on their head. And I was like, could that work? It's technically not dropping it, but I'm sure it was not allowed.
I think they'd be voted out. How do you guys think that you would do in a challenge like this?
I would be out.
I would be horrible. But Dan dropped after being a bit cocky, which doesn't make me too upset, because he looks over at the other tribe and he's like, oh, come on, you can't hold 3 bags in one hand. Every time you get tribal in these, or cocky in these situations, you're going to drop or you're going to be out, and just don't do it, okay? Just don't do it.
I was going to say some people in our chat, DOHC323 says, shame on Dan. That's what happens when you show off. Agree.
Hey,
100% agree. And then Chelsea90 is also saying Allison and Mike were strong in that challenge. They were the strongest. And then Sheena123 is Dan is disappointing me for some reason. It's his cockiness.
You know what? And at the beginning, I really liked Dan. Maybe it was because I just thought he was so attractive. But now I'm like, now that like I'm really getting to know his personality a little bit more, I'm not sure how I feel. And I feel like, well, we'll get into predictions, but like Kara might be kind of starting to feel the same way. On the other hand, though, I've been really falling in love with Alec, and he has really shown, I feel like, that he's a strong player. And he flopped on his alliance at one point, which people are a little bit concerned about, which we saw at the merge feast last week. But I do think that he is smart, and he's saying that like he doesn't want to be locked in with Goliath, and he knows that certain votes will get him to be like locked in one way or the other, and he wants to keep his playing field open. So like, how do you feel about Alec as a player and how he's been doing?
I just want to first off say that Alec was kind of just another player in the beginning of the season. He wasn't rememberable to me, but now.
Did you say rememberable?
Yes, I did. I'm so dumb, guys.
I was like, wait, what?
That's not a word. I'm copywriting it now. It's definitely going to be a word.
I like that word.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, excuse me. He wasn't very memorable. Thank you very much for laughing at
Just
me.
Calling you out like that, you know.
It's okay.
I have to.
So I thought I was going to get away with it.
You did think you were going to get away with it.
I definitely did not. But yes, now that we had that great laugh, Alec is definitely more memorable now. I think his gameplay is smart. In the sense that he has made some pretty big moves, and he's making some risky alliances and walking a fine line between all of these different alliances, between like his original Goliath and this new like strike force that he's got going on. And the fact that it yet has not come back to bite him in the butt is very impressive.
Right, yeah, I agree. And I don't think he was wrong about like switching on the Natalia vote, so I'm not mad about it. Anything going on in the live chat before we get into immunity?
Let's just see. Desiree Simone saying, "Ooh, wasn't Alec the one to expose the Christian vote?" Yes, he did. He was the one who told everyone.
He told Nick about it.
Yes. And then Sheena123 is just asking, Paige, are you still attracted to Alec, or are you changing your mind to Nick?
Oh, Nick's a cutie. Like Nick's a cutie,
adorable.
but I'm like moving my focus towards Alec. Yes, and that's my answer.
Steven says in the chat saying Alec is such a fun character and player. Hope he goes far.
Yeah. He seems like a good guy, too. I follow him on Instagram now. Anyways, so immunity, this was one from a Game Changers challenge, and you had to, like, balance on the ledge while also balancing a ball, like, at the same time. So we have two balancing things going on. This looks, like, super hard to me, I think. Let me know how you guys think the challenge was.
I feel like the balancing would be okay. It's the... with the ball, yeah.
Right. But Kara pretty much drops within seconds, and we kind of get down to... a Dan versus Angelina showdown, and Dan ends up winning. So this could have been pretty crucial tonight, like if Angelina would have won. You know, I wonder who the other vote would have been for, but, you know, Dan wins, and, yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good challenge. What did you think? Anything specific that you, like, stands out to you?
I think for me... a part of me was kind of hoping Angelina would win. And it sounds surprising because her portrayal on the show hasn't... I haven't enjoyed it, obviously. I've been giving her a hard time. But I kind of wanted her to win just because I feel like it would be hard to swallow the fact that she didn't go home. Yeah, because like, people just chose to keep her in. It's like if she had immunity, okay, at least we get it.
I know. But, like, then I think maybe Dan's... because people were throwing out Dan's name a lot at the beginning. So I think it kind of came down to, like... well, it didn't end up coming down to it, but, like, at the time would have been, like, Angelina and Dan for who the Goliath vote would have been to vote off a Goliath. But can we say also, you know, we love Alec, but, like, at the beginning, was Alec not every single one of us, like, mouthing Jeff's words exactly at the beginning?
I still do.
I love it. Alec, it's just, like, I love these super fans. It's just so much fun. But, yeah, anyways, Dan wins immunity, and we are back to camp. And basically, John right away says, you know, it's going to be a hashtag brochacho blindside. I'd be interested to see how many hashtags on Twitter there are now for brochacho blindside.
I just want to go into the chat real quick because Alec is getting some love here. Let's see. James Bryan is saying Alec is smart in how to manage relationships with both sides at the same time strategizing, which I agree.
He is.
James is also saying he totally underestimated Alec, and Mir Domains is saying Alec is smart. So I feel like we're all kind of seeing that Alec is being a really good strategic player right now.
Right. Yeah, agreed. So the fact that Angelina lost this immunity challenge, though, was kind of an easy way for the Goliaths to say, hey, we're all voting out Angelina. Like, although they told Angelina they weren't, this was, like, their plan to tell everybody. And Angelina was very stressed, you know. She's like, even if I'm not good, like, I don't want to be in the hot seat, blah, blah, blah. But Dan kind of goes off on her and goes, hey, you're the one that messed up last week. And here's the thing. Regardless of if they put your name down, I'll play my idol for you.
See, that was where the conversation took a turn, and I was very confused because he started out with like, "Hey, look, you're the one who made this mistake." I thought he was really going to get angry and be like, "If you go home, you deserve it." That's where I thought the conversation was going. But then he said, "I'll play my idol for you," which I was like, "Why are you telling her?"
I thought the same thing. Like, I thought he was like, being like, "Hey, you messed up, and you're basically gonna have not like you're gonna go home, but you're gonna have to deal with like them thinking it's your name, and your name's gonna be written down, but you're not going home." But like, it was more like he was saying, "Oh, I'll play my idol for you," which is just crazy to me because all last week he acted like he hates the girl. All this week he acts like he hates her. Like, he does not.
He wants her to go home.
He wants her to go home. It doesn't seem like Dan really gets along with or vibes with Angelina, but yet he's like staying strong to his alliance, which I understand, but I think he's more doing it for Kara than he is himself.
But why? I don't think Kara has any attachments toward Angelina.
I don't know. It's like they're like the girls and the Goliaths. Like, they just like are banded together. Allison seems like she's a little bit further, like she's more playing the field. Have we seen Kara talk to any Davids?
She's a very quiet player.
Yeah, very quiet player. So I don't know. Like, I just didn't think that Dan really even should have thrown out that possibility about playing the idol. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think that it was smart of Dan to do this, or what do you guys think? I don't know. It seemed very strange to me.
Some people in the chat are already starting to chime in with that. Desiree is saying Kara is probably pissed that he played the extra idol for Angelina, which I kind of would be too if like you see me as like your second in command, like this person you really connect with. I would hope that you would save it for me.
But I feel like they all made this decision together. I don't think that Dan just kind of brought this up at Tribal himself. I think the three of them had a conversation about it, and Kara was probably on board with this before because he kind of had to make a decision beforehand, is what I think. I don't know. But moving forward, Alec, though, kind of does the same thing that Angelina did last week by going and telling Nick everything that's going on about the Christian vote.
I thought that was just more strategic because that is his other alliance, and he doesn't want to seem like he's completely blindsiding them. And again, it seems like this might not come back at Alec, at least the way that the edit made it seem in Tribal.
And see, the thing is like, like you're saying, the reason why Alec did it is a bit of more of a strategy. The reason why Angelina did it was because she was butthurt that they weren't going with her idea.
Yeah.
Like, she literally just went off the rails and then didn't expect it to blow up in her face. But what did she expect Elizabeth to do with that information? The Davids were on the bottom. See, it's still making me mad.
When your name is on the chopping block, you will do anything to try and save yourself. And that's what Elizabeth did. It's like that was a dumb move on Angelina's part to think that it would help her.
Yes. But anyway, so Alec kind of goes and tells Nick everything. And Nick has a lot of power in this game at this point. He has... And he's been flying very under the radar, like he said, but he has a lot of power in this game. So he tells Christian, hey, they're lying to you, just so you know. And Christian goes, well, what should I do with this information? What do you think? And he's like, hey, just do whatever you were going to do before I told you about this, bro. Like, what do you mean? Like, I have to shift my entire plan. So I don't know what he expected by doing that. But he does go and ask Davey, hey, will you be willing to play your advantage for Christian? And I think at least asking was a smart move. But I didn't know if Davey didn't really say yes or no. He just said, let's think about it. I mean, do you think that, like, it was a good move on Nick's part? I mean, like, I think it was a good move for them to go together and be like, hey, maybe you could play the advantage. But I didn't know if Davey was going to play anything for him.
I agree. I didn't know if Davey was going to play anything because he didn't have to. No one knew that he had his idol, which was why it made it so surprising when it happened.
They just asked for the advantage, not for an idol.
Exactly. And I mean, to be fair, the idol was the only thing that could really secure Christian's safety because the idol, with the way the numbers would work, Nick even said it would force a tie. He's like, no one would draw rocks for Angelina, which is true.
Right. But even so, if you would have played the advantage, it wouldn't have forced a tie. Like, so many votes were against Christian tonight, like more than I thought. So, I mean, it was smart of him to play his idol.
It was.
But then he doesn't have an idol.
But he doesn't have an idol, but I still feel like he's part of this kind of powerful threesome with
They still have two
Nick
advantages.
and Nick and Carl with their advantages, yeah.
Anyways. But, like, so at Tribal, though, you know, Jeff kind of calls out, you know, we know that Jeff always kind of, like, calls out people and says stuff like that. But, like, he right away was like, hey, basically everybody, hey, Christian's a big threat. Like, I thought that was kind of weird because if Christian wasn't a big threat on anybody's radar at this point, like, well, now he is because Jeff's throwing him out as a threat.
Exactly, and that's why I say the way that the edit was this episode makes it seem like Alex's whole little spiel to Christian is not going to come back to bite him because I felt like anyone at that Tribal could figure out, oh, it might be Christian that they're targeting because everyone was just talking about Christian being a threat.
Exactly. I know, and I especially didn't like that Jeff did it because, like, let the players kind of say
Jeff.
it. Yeah, I don't know. But, okay, so it ends up that Davey plays his idol for Christian, and we thought that was the end of it. Angelina turns around to Dan and says, Dan, we have to do it. Please, please, please. Like, is begging Dan at this point to play the idol. I didn't think he was going to do it for a while.
I didn't think so either, but I just want to go to the chat real quick because there is some discussion about whether or not Nick knew Davey had an idol. Because from our from what we're seeing, it didn't seem like they knew, but some people are saying they had to have known because why would he have played it kind of thing.
I think Davey played it on his own 100%. Like, I don't think anybody knew. I definitely don't think Christian knew that that was a possibility.
I think so too, and Nick looked really surprised when he pulled out that idol.
And also, Davey has said that he has not told anybody about this idol. He's said that multiple times. So I wonder if I mean, they're not going to be upset with him because he played the idol for his friends.
He played it very smart.
But yeah, exactly. Like, unlike Dan, who gets two idols and then tells Kara about both of them, and she's the one that's like, next week, oh, we got to flip on him. And I'm like, oh my God, that's why you don't tell people about both idols. You told her about one, I get it. But not two, you found two on your own and you're going to go tell her? Be very careful with who you tell your idols to. Like, Davey played this perfectly. He played it perfectly.
He did.
Anyways, Dan ends up playing the idol for Angelina.
Which I really don't know why, because I don't know. I feel like if Angelina went home this week, I don't think anyone would have been too disappointed.
No,
I don't think
that.
I don't think anyone would have looked at Dan and be like, "Well, why didn't you save her?" You know, because she was in such hot water anyway.
People would understand. Like, he went all full force ahead to save her. I wonder if, like, everybody on his, like, if they're cool with that, if they were like, dude, why? You know? I don't know. But unfortunately, John got caught in the crossfire.
Man.
And so the votes went this way. So, I mean, Gabby and Carl voted for Angelina. So Angelina only had 2 votes against her, not 3. Everybody else voted for Christian except Christian, Davey, and Nick voted for John. And we didn't see any talk about John this whole time, so it was a perfect, I mean, that's what made the show so great. But I wonder what that conversation was like.
I understand why in the edit it wasn't brought up at once because it was a complete blindside to absolutely everybody.
But I think Christian, Davey, and Nick were, like, playing this smart.
They had to
because they didn't vote Angelina for a certain reason.
I'm sure it's because they figured that maybe that's the way that the votes would have went because again, the way the edit was made it seem it was very black and white. It was going to be Angelina and Christian.
Right.
And so for them to play smart, I feel like they obviously had this contingency plan to write someone else's name down because with 2 people possibly being saved.
You know what? Maybe Davey, before they went to Tribal, did tell Christian and Nick, hey, Christian, I have an idol. I'm going to play it for you. Don't worry. But who else would we want to get out if Angelina has an idol? You know, maybe there was some talk of that, but I didn't want John to go home.
I didn't want him to go home because he's so humble and he's such a nice guy. But at the same time, I really want to know how this conversation went down to get John out.
He was such a good sport about it too. He was like laughing. He was like, "Damn, you know, like this sucks." And I would rather be like honestly sometimes voted out that way than like be like totally blindsided and be like so pissed about it. But like John's a great sport. I'm happy about it. But I think that Dan actually we might see next week, like maybe he's not happy with the decision he made because now he saved Angelina and one of his other allies, one of his brochachos ended up going home. So obviously that's not what he expected.
That's what someone is saying in the chat. James Bryan is saying Dan lost one of his closest allies.
Right. By playing an idol for someone that he obviously doesn't even care about really. So that's a doozy.
And then James, again, is also saying the episode totally foreshadowed John going home, which I have to go back and watch that because I did not see his elimination coming at all.
We love you, John. You're a great guy. We wish you wouldn't have gone home
And
this
then
way.
I do enjoy this. Sheena123 is saying, so excited to see Elizabeth and John at Ponderosa, but I always like seeing the smirk from the people on the jury coming back to tribal council.
Like, they kind of realize, like, hey, I'm back in real life, and, like, this is just a game.
Yeah. But also, like, I have the power now. Mwahaha.
Yeah, like, mwahaha, exactly. I would be interested to know if Elizabeth would vote for Angelina.
What was that?
If, like, Elizabeth being on the jury now, say that Angelina was in the final 3, if Elizabeth would vote for her to win.
I think it could be a possibility because the fact that she made it there.
And honestly, like, it was Angelina's mistake. Like, Elizabeth had to do what she had to do. She was playing the game. And she said that when she left. She was like, hey, you know, how to play.
Okay, Audrey in the chat is saying Nick and Christian both knew about David's idol because they all voted for John, which splits the David vote.
That's exactly what we were saying.
That was what you were saying.
Right.
So that would make sense that, yes, they did have to know.
Right. That was pretty much the only way, unless, I mean, maybe Davey came up with something else. But, yeah, that's kind of what we were thinking towards the end, too. Well, with that being said, let's get into our Survivor MVP for the week. We only have 2 of us.
And again, in the live chat, let us know who your MVPs are this week. I know a few of you had already mentioned it in the very beginning, but please say it again so we can give you some shout-outs and see if they're like ours.
Yes, and once the votes are read, they're final. And here's vote number 1. Nick and Davey. We got 2.
2 MVPs.
Nick and Davey. MVP number 2. Nick. So Nick is clearly our MVP this week.
He is. It was such a strong move. It really was.
He had so much power on his hands. He was the one that went back and told Christian about everything so they could flip the vote. Like, Nick is playing very under the radar, and he's playing very smart throughout this game, and I'm excited to see how far he goes.
Just going to our chat real quick. Eric, Sheena, Brian, Desiree, Donna, Steven are all saying Davey, and let's see, Joseph and James are saying Nick, and then Mere Domains is also saying Nick is a great player. So it's on we're all kind of on the same page. Yeah. It's either Nick or Davey this week.
Davey really killed it. But I hope that playing his idol, I mean, he had to keep his alliance strong, I get it, but I also hope that he maybe can find another idol then, because then he could keep it for himself. I get so stressed when people play their idols for other people, and I know it's part of the game, but it also, like, takes a little bit of power away from you at some point. Because you could use it for yourself.
It takes power away from you, but at the same time, I like it when people use their idols because so many people don't use their idols. Yeah. I'm just please play it.
Because they go home with one in their pocket, so I would much rather this happen. And yay, Christian gets to stay another week. We love you, Christian.
We love you, Christian. Stay strong. And I was going to say, this might be... I'm very intrigued to see where next week goes because...
Predictions.
I was going to say. It's a great segue into predictions.
Right, perfect. But what were you saying now?
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Ooh.
I was just going to say, I'm very curious to how next week is going to go because sometimes after you play your idol, you feel very vulnerable and feel like you're an easy target. But after this shocking vote, I really don't know which way the vote's going to go next because it's like, there's no solid alliance, I feel like, at this point. There's kind of the trio, and then there's also kind of the strike force, but might not be a part of that anymore, so...
And I don't think that, like, Davey was really necessarily seen... Like, I think he was also playing very under the radar and, like, not really seen as a threat by any of the Goliaths. So now, like, he kind of put his name out there, and I feel like maybe people will want to work with him now because they understand, like, hey, he's strong in his alliance. He's finding idols, you know. I think maybe he'll be more of, like, a force to be reckoned with. But predictions for next week, I think Dan and Kara are going to see some trouble in paradise.
That's clearly what the edit makes it look like to be, and I think that would be just so interesting because Kara has so much information on Dan. I mean, obviously, just in regards to his idol.
Yeah, and I would be very happy to see Kara make a big move like this, get Dan out, because first of all, everybody's freaking annoyed by it anyways. Second of all, like, you're hurting your game by just sticking with only Dan, who people want to get out and don't like. So I think this could be really good for your game later on if you, like, make a move against him now.
I was also
especially knowing about his idols. Take one of the idols out of his pocket. Like, have him give you an idol. Like, do something.
Do something.
Yeah.
Exactly. But not even that. As I mentioned earlier, she's a very quiet player. So this would be something very good to put on her resume if she ever needs it.
Right.
You know?
Rile her up a little bit for sure. But yeah, I mean,
what else?
Yeah.
I had a couple of more.
Oh, sure.
That I was going to say. In my predictions, Is Dan going home was one of them. Oh, and then it also kind of looks like the Goliaths might be aligning with the Davids.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to see like, oh, maybe the Davids have more power than we think, because it seemed like Kara was switching. No, wait, was Kara was a Goliath all the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like she might be switching over, her and Allison talking with Gabby. So that's what I'm saying is like, what alliances are kind of sticking around in these next couple of weeks?
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
so
know.
interested.
Especially like, the Goliaths, I mean, we like to say that they're going to stay strong, and Dan showed that he was strong to his alliance, and obviously Mike was stronger to his alliance than he was to the Christian alliance, so I don't know.
James is just saying Kara would blindside Dan. Sheena123 is saying we need to see Allison make a big move. I would love to see Allison make a big move.
Yeah.
Steven Sosa is saying I really think Allison could go far. I agree. I think she's starting to come and shine a little bit as well. So I'm really interested to see where she goes.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to try to do a segment from now on, Survivor, Where Are They Now? Because we don't really have a ton of news and gossip on the show because, as you guys know, it's a competition show, so they can't really show much until after the fact, until like the live finale. So we don't have a ton of stuff like on their Instagrams. They don't really give us too much. So we might try to think of like, where are Survivor favorites now? And what did they do with that $1 million they had? So anyways, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
This show gives me such anxiety.
Right?
Have I mentioned that already? I feel like I'm going to say it every week. It gives me anxiety, but in the best way possible, because, man, tonight's episode was amazing.
So good. Can we keep up with it being this good throughout the rest of the season? Because right since the merge, we've had 2 really, really strong episodes, and I hope that we keep going in this way because it's amazing. And we love Survivor, and we know you guys love Survivor, and that's why you're here for AfterBuzz TV. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for Survivor. Season 37, Episode 7. I'm your host, Paige Bonanno, and you guys can find me all over social media at Paige Bonanno.
Hey guys, Veronica Valencia here. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at it's me, Veronica_V.
And we will see you next week right here.
Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.